Hello, bonjour, ciao, and welcome back to my channel. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tolu and I am a second year medical student at the University of Oxford. And sometimes I create videos about the actual application process to medicine alongside doing my makeup in a series I didn't really creatively call medicine and makeup. So I'm literally just going to talk to you about the BMAT in today's video because the actual BMAT test is coming up for a bunch of current students who are applying to medical school right now, and I wanted to talk about what the test requires, my own experience, and some potential tips and tricks that you can also use if you're currently revising for the BMAT. Now, the BMAT stands for the Biomedical Admissions Test, and it's one of the tests that is required from a bunch of universities in the UK if you want to apply to medical school. Now, I've got that list of universities on my phone, so I'm just gonna read them out. That includes Brighton and Sussex Medical School, Imperial, Lancaster University, UCL, University of Cambridge, University of Leeds, Oxford and Keele. So if you're interested in applying to one of those universities, make sure that you are preparing accordingly for the BMAT because it's very, very different to other admissions tests. But yeah, I'm gonna get started with my makeup and I'm gonna talk you through the BMAT as well as my experience. So first I'm gonna take off my glasses, put my contacts on because I'm going to have another attempt at an interesting makeup look. And in case my eyes don't necessarily focus on the camera, it's because my mirror is literally here. Like, you can see a little glimpse of it here, but my mirror is here just so I can see what I'm doing well. But hopefully that doesn't interfere with the things that I suggest to you in this video. So hang on with me while I put my contacts on. Okay, now that my contacts are on, we can get going, and I wanted to quickly apologise, like just now, for any lighting changes because I'm using natural light and I can't control the sun. And also, if you hear any background noise, I apologise because the freshers are actually outside my room because it's Freshers Week right now, so they're just literally enjoying themselves. And if anyone in my corridor like walks by, if you hear the background noise, sorry, but just don't pay too much attention to that. But anyway, let's get going into talking about the BMAT. I'm also going to include all the makeup that I use in the description box below just so I don't interrupt the flow of the video. But like I said before, the BMAT is one of the admissions tests that you're required to take if you're considering applying to medical school in the UK and in some other countries around the world as well. And I've already read out the list, but in case you forgot, it did include Oxford, Cambridge, Leeds, Lancaster, Keele, Brighton and Sussex, UCL, and there was one more and I can't remember. But hopefully if you just look back at this video, you'll be able to realise what it is. So the BMAT is split into 3 sections and they're easily sectioned as section 1, 2 and 3. And like I said before, they test you on different things. So please, please, please check out the BMAT website just so you know what is expected of you in terms of your revision. And it's coming up really soon. The BMAT is usually done in 2 sittings. It's usually done in, I think, the September sitting and the October/November sitting. Different universities require different sittings to have been taken in order for you to be eligible for the application process, but most of them usually accept the later sitting, which is done at the end of October, sort of November, and I think this year it's been done like right at the end of October, so check that out too. Hopefully you should have applied by now because there are specific dates that you need to follow in order to apply for these admissions tests. And again, all that information is available on the BMAT website, so just literally type in BMAT on Google and it will definitely come up, so just bear that in mind for when you are considering applying or you've done so already. So section 1 is a 1 hour long section that essentially tests you on your aptitude skills. So this is all about your logical reasoning, problem solving, understanding arguments and so on. So there are a range of potential questions that could come up, and essentially the best way to go about tackling this section is definitely through practicing a lot of logical skills, sort of past papers and questions, and going through it accordingly because it could literally ask you about anything in regards to aptitude and logic. Luckily, on the BMAT website there are access to past papers which you can use to practice this section because it's the kind of thing where you can't necessarily just go into it and just do it by your own accord. You definitely need to practice and familiarise yourself with the different layouts that are required for this particular section because it is quite sort of not demanding but very interesting to sort of see the first time you do come across it. So definitely please, please, please look into the past papers that are available on the BMAT website because it's free, it's accessible, and I think it's a 2014 paper itself that has work solutions as well. So this brings me on to my next point about using past papers in exam questions. If possible, look into finding worked solutions because that will definitely help you understand how particular answers are reached. because sometimes if you're going through a mark scheme and they tell you that the answer to the question is this answer, you may literally have no clue as to why it is the case. So if you have access to worked solutions, please, please, please make use of it, because it will definitely help you in the long run. Now, unfortunately, like I said before, the BMAT website only has the work solutions for the 2014 paper, which is rather unfortunate. However, there are some textbooks available that do offer a similar sort of help, if that makes sense. And I will leave them in the link below, and maybe if I'm in the mood when I edit this, I will put them there. So I don't know why I'm doing this, but hopefully some textbook examples will be coming up on the screen next to me that you can potentially look into purchasing if you're able to afford it, and use it to help you continue to practice those sections. If you are unable to get access to those books, check out this website called World of Books, which helps sell quite a few books using secondhand prices, and I really love World of Books. I get a lot of my books from there because it is just a lot cheaper than you would find on Amazon or other sort of bookstores as well. Or check if any of your peers or your older friends or like any relatives or family members have these old textbooks, because all of my textbooks that I use when it came to preparing for the UCAT and the BMAT, I got secondhand from a friend who applied the year before I did, so I didn't actually end up paying for many of my textbooks. I just literally borrowed the ones that she offered to me. So if you have someone available who's able to do that, definitely consider it, because it will definitely help a lot in terms of helping you save money, because applying to med school is expensive. It is very expensive, because you also have to pay to actually do the BMAT, which is annoying, but that's life, I guess. But yeah, practice papers, going through them and working through them, and just literally have a go as best as you can, because it literally is just a test of your logical skills and your reasoning. So definitely work through the different questions and the types that are available, and familiarise yourself with what could potentially come up. It may not be the exact same as how you practice it, but it'll help you practice and get more used to that style of questioning. And there is a limited amount of BMAT past papers available on the website, but one thing that I realised that you could also use to help you practice with section 1 is the TSA paper. Now the TSA paper is another admissions test, but it's not for medicine, it's for like other subjects. I know some of my friends who do PPE had to do the TSA paper, but the TSA paper is almost identical to section 1 of the BMAT. So if you need more practice questions to help you out with this section, look at the TSA papers and work through them too, because honestly there are so many questions available on the TSA section as well, and it will definitely help in terms of preparing for section 1. So please look into using the TSA papers, because it definitely will benefit you in terms of practice and preparing, so hopefully that does help. Section 2 of the BMAT. Okay, so that was section 1, which is all about logical and aptitude skills and stuff. Section 2 of the BMAT is mostly about scientific reasoning, basically science, biology, chemistry, maths and physics. Now this section, whether or not you took any of those subjects at A level, you will still be tested on it during the BMAT. Now for me, at A level I took biology, chemistry and maths. So the physics section of it, that was fun having to relearn my GCSE content, because essentially the stuff that you're tested on for this section is mostly GCSE content, but a bit of AS content as well when it comes to the sciences. So you just have to hopefully pray that you do have access to your GCSE notes, because the content will come up whether you like it or not. But one thing that's really handy that the BMAT website has is that they have a sort of syllabus kind of for section 2 that shows you what information you actually need to know for that section. So definitely look at the website to see what parts of the specifications you actually need to learn, because you don't want to like learn too much of something that you may not be doing in school when you could be focusing on other things. So definitely look into the syllabus specification thing, so you know exactly what equations you need to know for physics, so you know exactly what information you need to know for biology, chemistry and stuff for maths too, because as long as you practice what is expected of you, you should be okay, because that's essentially what will come up in the section 2 exam. So section 2, you've got 27 multiple choice questions to answer in half an hour. So like I said, it's really important to make sure that you know the content that you need to learn for this section, so you don't learn too little and you don't learn too much. And speed is of the essence with this section, because like I said, you literally only have half an hour to go through 27 questions. So it's really important that you sort of are very confident with the potential content that could come up, because you don't want to necessarily waste a lot of time on one question when you can literally use the time that you've wasted on other things as well. So it's really important that you be as quick as possible. So for this section, if you still have your GCSE notes, fantastic, amazing, definitely make use of that, because you'll need to be going over those same things for the BMAT, because it will come up. However, if you don't have your GCSE notes, it's also fine. There are lots of sort of tools and websites online that can help you refresh your GCSE knowledge, including like the BBC bite-sized website if need be, and just literally just using anything online that's available for free to help you with your understanding of things like that, because it's actually okay. It's honestly okay. Like, don't worry too much about it. Just literally utilize what is available online to your advantage, and just do it like that. I would recommend familiarizing yourself with the spec first and making sure that you understand all the content before you even start going through questions, because like I said before, there are limited questions available for working through when it comes to BMAT, but if you've got access to the textbooks, use the textbooks. However, I would really recommend you working through the content first before you even touch the text, not the textbooks, before you touch like the past papers, just so you have as much available to practice with, just so you can optimize your revision as best as you can. Okay, cool. So continuing on with section 2, now that my liner is done, because I can't multitask and do liner and talk at the same time. So like I said before, definitely just look at the syllabus, work through those questions as well as you can. Looking through your old GCSE notes if you still have access to them. If not, there's lots of tools available online, and just literally working through them. And then once you've done all of that, start working through the past paper questions and literally working on your timing. I would recommend that if you aren't sure about a particular question, please don't spend longer on them than you need to, because like I said before, you literally have half an hour for this section, so you literally cannot afford to waste time on one question if you don't understand. If you don't get it, move on to the next one and just work through as many of them as possible, because you literally don't have the time for it. So work on your timing, please work on your timing. Now the last section of the BMAT is section 3, and this is all about essay writing. So whether or not you took an essay subject at school doesn't really matter, because you're going to be tested on your essay writing skills anyway. This section is very interesting, and I feel like I should have gone through the scoring system before, but it doesn't matter. But this section is about how well you are able to form an argument and sort of structure your opinions on something depending on the question that they give you. So you'll have 3 potential questions, and you have to pick one of them to answer in this section. You're tested on your ability to write a coherent and cohesive text, your ability to sort of structure things well as your spag. So spag is hella really important. So with section 3, you'll be given 3 questions. You have to just basically pick one to answer, and you have to do so in half an hour, and you only get a page, like 1 A4 page to do so. So if you have big handwriting, you're gonna have to try and find a way to make it a lot smaller, because you have a limited space to actually answer a lot of these questions. Now I'm gonna do the rest of my makeup. I'm gonna oh yeah, I have braids now, by the way, in case you couldn't tell already, but I'm gonna try and get the rest of my face done. Now the problem with preparing for section 3 is that you don't necessarily have like a set mark scheme that you can follow through after to check if the preparation that you're doing is okay. It's just a case of practicing your writing technique. So I would just suggest you, when you're preparing for this section, get into the habit of knowing how to form lists of for and against arguments. So have your question at the top and make a list of potential things that you could use to help support your case, whether it be for or against, because that will help you in terms of your structure, knowing how to make things flow better. Because with this section, you're tested, like I said before, on your ability to form pros and argue for and against, as well as your spag, and how things sort of flow together. So it's really important to basically practice those things to ensure that you get the most marks that you can with this section. So those are essentially all of the sections that are required of you for the BMAT. Now let me talk about how it's actually scored, which is very, very important, and I should have done it at the start, but I apologize because I didn't. But you know, what can you do? But in terms of actually being tested on these sections, you were tested on a scale of 1 to 9, or 0 to 9, with 0 being the lowest and 9 being the highest. Now, getting 9s or even 8s is very, very rare, and if you were to get a grade like that, props to you. That's amazing, because it's honestly such a rare sort of thing to achieve. So within the scale of 1 to 9, you also have decimals in between. So you could have a score of like 4.2 or 4.5 or 5.2 or 5.7. So although it's on a scale of 1 to 9, there are also little decimal divisions in between that you can be tested onto. 5s and 6s, well 4s, 5s and 6s are the average, which makes sense because it's slap bang in the middle between a scale of 0 to 9. So I personally was aiming for 5s and 6s when I was preparing for my BMAT. So when I was going through questions and like marking myself, trying to be not generous to myself, because you can't be generous to yourself when you're sort of going through questions like this. So I was aiming for 5s and 6s because I was applying to Oxford. So the schools that I applied to, in case you don't know already, were Oxford, St Andrews, Imperial and Nottingham. Oxford and Imperial were the ones that required the BMAT. So I had a 50-50 split in terms of my admissions tests. So I wanted to get as high or a decent grade, because even 6s is like above average, which is really, really good score. So I was just aiming for 5s and 6s and practicing as well as I could in terms of being able to get those particular scores and those grades. So section 1 is just normally scaled 0 to 9. So you just, like I said before, 0 to 9, with 9 being the best. And it's just a case of how many you get right really in that section. And you don't necessarily, you won't get every single question right, I assume. Maybe you will, maybe you're special like that, but not many people don't usually get many questions correct when it comes to section 1. So that's honestly like fine. Just work as hard as you can to get a score as high as you can, because that's literally all that you can really do. Section 2 is the same, just literally try and get as many of those questions correct as you can. There's no like, not rush, but you just do the best that you can. Now section 3 is scored a bit differently to the others, in the case where it's not 0 to 9 anymore, it's 0 to 5, and you also have letters now that are introduced into the mix to help you when it comes to this section. So you're scored on a scale of 0 to 5 depending on like how like well formed your argument is, blah blah blah, and then a scale of A to E, I think, on your spelling, punctuation and grammar. So this time it's like 0.0s and 0.5 rather than decimal places, and also letters, where A is like, wow, really great spelling, punctuation and grammar, this flows really well, it's coherent, it's cohesive, good grammatical structure, blah blah blah. And then like E is like, yeah, not very good. So you're aiming for hopefully an A for that, for SPAG, because SPAG is really important, and also like in the freeze up for like the overall structure of your argument and everything. So again, on the BMAT website, they have like examples of scored essays, so which scores got 3s, which ones got 5s, which ones got 1s and everything, and again they're annotated so you have a bit of a better understanding of the expectations of that particular section. And as I said before, it's kind of difficult to basically mark yourself for the BMAT. Just practice as well as you can when it comes to forming arguments and then going about it from there. Now when it comes to the scoring system, some universities have particular minimum criteria that you need to meet in order to be eligible for the rest of the application process. Now that's a little bit mean, but that's how life goes, unfortunately. So Imperial is one of those universities, and they have minimum cutoff scores for the BMAT that you have to exceed in order to be considered further in your application. And if you don't get that minimum cutoff score, then you essentially won't let your application, or they won't continue looking at your application further than that point. Now before I actually go on to admitting my scores, which is what I know a lot of you guys are hoping for, I want to talk about like my actual BMAT test sitting experience, because for me it's going to be slightly different to like these next few years because of, you know, pandemic. But when I did it in school. It was written and it was okay. Like, I remember doing all my practice as I could, and I felt relatively confident about how it would go out. And unfortunately the fire alarm went off during my BMAT, so that kind of threw me off a little bit, and I guess you can kind of basically tell that it did so when I tell you the score of my first section, section 1, because it wasn't necessarily what I was hoping for, because like I said before, I was aiming for 5s and 6s as my overall sort of final grade. But overall my BMAT, the BMAT was okay. Like, as long as you work on all the sections and use like the tips that I've potentially suggested in the video, then you should hopefully be fine, or relatively fine, because there's only so much prep and practice that you can do, so as much practice as you can is really helpful. And then going from there, I think that's like most of the tips I'd suggest for the BMAT, in case you're willing or you're hoping to apply. I genuinely wish the best for all of you who are sort of taking your BMAT this year, because it's an interesting year to do many things, but just practice as much as you can. I spent about a month practicing mine, because there's only so much that you can do in terms of practice, but I spent about a month, so this should, like, by the time you see this video, hopefully you would have already started practicing if you're hoping to do the BMAT this year. Or if you're watching this after the 2020 sort of cycle, then around about a month is how much I spent when it came to preparing for the BMAT. Because one thing you've got to be mindful of is that this is done during school time, and you may well have mocks that you're preparing for in school, so it's really important that you're balancing your time well, so that you're doing everything that needs to be done, because you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're sort of focusing too much on a BMAT and like neglecting your schoolwork, because at the end of the day that's also really important, because you need to make sure that your predicted grades are, you know, the way they should be, because that's a really important part of the application process too. But yeah, the moment you've all been waiting for, the actual scores I got for my BMAT. Section 1 I got a 4.2. I remember looking at my BMAT results, because it's released a few weeks after you actually do it. I remember looking at that score and thinking that I had screwed up completely and that I would not be getting into the schools that I applied to, because the imperial cutoff score is usually around 4.2 and up, or 4.3 and up. And I got a 4.2, and I was thinking, what if this cohort did really well this year and they shift up the minimum requirement? And I was just so upset at the time when I saw that score, because I felt like that was the end of the road for me. And it was not the one. It wasn't fun at all. But luckily it wasn't, because I was literally on the verge of the cutoff for that year, so I was very lucky. So for that year I got 4.2 for my section 1. Wasn't the best, but it was just about enough. So looking up and focusing on that rather than like paying too much attention to the bad stuff, if that makes sense. For section 2, very pleased with that one. I got a 5.7. Don't know how I got a 5.7, but I managed to get a 5.7, which was really good. I was pleased with myself for that one too. And then for my section 3 I got a 3.5A. But yeah, like I said at the time, I wasn't very pleased with those scores, because I genuinely thought I had done better, but looking back at it now, that was actually a decent score to get. And yeah, there was just no need for me to sort of panic about it, because I actually ended up doing alright. So I don't know why I was stressed. Maybe it was just like at the time, but yeah, it was honestly okay. It was completely fine. Okay, but yeah, both of my scores: section 1 4.2, section 2 5.7, oh my gosh, and section 3 3.5A. Now ignore the setup of my desk, it's an actual mess right now. But that was it. That was the BMAT done. Hopefully some of the things that I suggested to you in this video are helpful. I don't know how I feel about this. Probably will remove this stuff from here, but this is the final look. This is the finished look. Let me zoom in just so you can actually see my face a bit better. Ooh. But yeah, this is the finished look. I don't know if you can see my lashes. My lashes are purple too. No, the lips look disgusting. I thought I would just like show you a better look at the final outcome of my makeup, because it wasn't very clear in like that bit. But here's the finished look. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and have managed to like gain a bit of insight into the things that you could potentially be using when it comes to you preparing the BMAT yourself. I wish you guys all the best, really. You'll honestly be fine, it's okay. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Bye.